The Smithsonian Faculty Fellowship Program represents a rewarding academic professional development opportunity for faculty at Montgomery College. The fellowships are a product of a unique collaboration between Montgomery College and the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access. It's the first of its kind between the Smithsonian Institution and a community college.
Beverly Spencer has taught speech communication classes at the Germantown campus of Montgomery College since 2009. Her mission is to help her students find their voice by creating a learning environment that serves as a catalyst for their talents and abilities. She is active in the peace and justice studies community. Beverly is a native of Dallas, Texas, where she earned her BPA in Speech Communication and Theater Education from Southern Methodist University. She earned her MS and PhD degrees in Speech Communication and Theater Education from the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas. She taught speech communication courses for 8 years at Eastfield College, a part of the Dallas County Community College District.
I want to thank Montgomery College and the Paul Peck Humanities Institute for this opportunity of participating in one of the most dynamic professional development experiences I've had since I've begun teaching at Montgomery College. I do teach Communication Studies 108, and in this class we examine and explore communication and how organizations use communication to express, identify, and reveal themselves. So this presentation will examine how I integrated the Smithsonian Fellowship about the Columbian Exchange into my classroom in the fall of 2014. As I said, I teach Communication 108, an Introduction to Human Communication. It's a 3-credit course that satisfies the Montgomery College General Education Program Speech Foundation requirement. The information about the project activities were incorporated into the course syllabus, and each student got a notebook that had basic information and the regular course materials, plus the particular and specific information about what we would be doing with the Smithsonian project. The materials I developed throughout the semester included the notebook cover with the Smithsonian Fellowship poster on it, a special Smithsonian project folder that had basic materials and progress report information and the other information pertaining to this specific project. So when they went down to the museum, they could just take their project folder with them. I also created special field trip dates throughout the semester and contact information, so if they were not able to go when the group of us went, they could go on their own and feel comfortable exploring the museums. There was a specific list of deliverables, and it was incorporated into the rest of the syllabus for the semester. And the way I got progress report information, this feedback was very important. We had it throughout the semester for 3 specific times after they had been down to the museum so that they could share what they had learned, and I could see their growth and development. They really went as tourists the first time they went down to the museum. The second time they went, they had an outline, they had roles that each one of them would be participating in terms of the discussion, and they were going as researchers, and they were really taking the academic information and using the museum as a way of examining how the institution chooses to communicate their identity as an organization. We also had a discussion outline that gave them a direction and guidance into what they were looking for when they went to the museum. They explored and examined the museum and how it represented itself through its physical presence with the architecture of the museum, the layout of the museum, the landscape design on the outside of the building, as well as the digital presence of the museum online. So they were looking at what was happening physically inside and outside the museum and how the organization chose to represent itself online. And the students also had a means of documenting their research and sharing it through the progress report for feedback so that I could see how they were developing their semester project. They had a consent form that we had to develop, and that has been very helpful to me. In the past, I've used materials that students have developed and created throughout the course so that each cohort of students learns from the students who've taken the course previously. And I developed one for the course last fall, but in putting together what I did for the spring semester, I was able to revise it, and I learned from that experience how to make it more reflective and how to make it more general so they could just check off boxes and give me the information I needed. We looked at communication through 4 different areas. Each class was divided into 4 groups, and I did this with 2 of my classes in the fall semester. Group number 1 explored communication through art, and they used the National Portrait Gallery and the Smithsonian American Art Museum as the venue that they explored and looked at how that facility chose to express themselves and communicate who they were. It's really a beautiful building, and it's one of the oldest public buildings in Washington, D.C. So the students seem to really enjoy going down there and getting to know and explore the building. Communication through space was group 2, and we went to the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center, which is part of the National Air and Space Museum. It's in Chantilly, Virginia, and the students looked at how this facility that's in a former Boeing airplane hangar uses its physical space to capture American culture through the air and space objects that they have available there. And it was really a wonderful experience for the students to go down. And one of the things that was a highlight of the visit, we got to see a student docent there who exhibited one of the space uniforms, and the students got to put their hand in one of the gloves and see the equipment that the people used in these space exploration adventures. So that was the exploration through space. And then group 3, communication through nature. And they were really looking at how the landscaping design outside of each of the museums was used to express the theme of the museum. And the National Museum of the American Indian reflected the input that many of the tribes had on influencing what the landscape was there, and it was very meaningful for the students. They also looked at the National Museum of Natural History and explored how nature was expressed and represented in that museum. Group 4 explored communication through culture, and they looked at one of the museums that is not actually open yet, and this was very exciting. The new National Museum of African American History and Culture will be opening next year, and so the students who were responsible for representing that had a particular challenge because guess what? It's not physically there yet, but they were able to look through the materials that are available, and they were able to look at the website and see the progress that's being made on the development of this institution that will be across from the National Museum of American History and across from the National Monument. So that was an exciting thing. The students working on that really seemed to enjoy it. The National Museum of American Indian had specific objects and special significance for the students who were reporting on how that museum reflects and represents the culture. And then the National Museum of American History at the time had an exhibit that closed last September, early in September, but we were able to still see it, comparing 1863 and 1963, changing America, what America was like at the time of the Civil War and what it was like in 1963. And it was a very dynamic and changing time for culture in America. So I really think the students were able to gain experiences that they might not have been able to have any other way by the participation and vigorous involvement of going down to the museums and getting to know the exhibits there and getting to feel that they understood what the museum was all about. I chose field trip dates for Udvardshezy on the first weekend of September, October, and November. And then the other museums were scheduled for the second weekend of September, October, and November. So groups could go down, and they were required to go down at least twice. And if they were not able to go with our group, then the hardest part for me was feeling like I had to let go and let them figure out how to get down there on their own. But they did it, and they seemed to do quite well. The other materials I provided each group with a Smithsonian guidebook so that they had basic background information, and there were also some other materials I picked up from some of the museums. The Land Has Memory gave information about landscapes and particular information of the history of how the decisions were made about the specific landscaping at the National Museum of the American Indian. And then there was a guide to the National Museum of Natural History and a guide to the Udvardshezy collection. So I tried to give them some resource materials that were available from the museum, and then they were sort of on their own to go through and develop how they chose to portray that museum and define how they use communication there. One of the things that I had to cope with, and I think most of us had to do, is figuring out how to modify the class schedule and the grading of activities. If you're part of the new cohort to the Smithsonian Fellowship, this will take some planning and it will take some adjustment. I incorporated time to discuss and plan Smithsonian project activities during class. Instead of saying, get together with your group and work on this, I incorporated time for collaboration during class time. I moved the group discussion, which is a part of the basic Introduction to Human Communication course, to the end of the semester. I usually do it more in the middle of the semester, but we moved that to the end to give them more time to go down to the museums and to gather their research and to work on it. I changed the weight of the group discussion activity to reflect the importance of the project, and then I also had to cut some activities. So one of the impromptu speeches was cut, and an inspirational speech that I had my students give in the past was deleted from the activities. I incorporated more group time for allowing the group work planning and preparation for the field trips so they could dynamically and collaboratively work together and figure out what they needed to do to be prepared, or when they were going down, or what they needed to do to get their presentation ready. Okay? And the lessons learned, I found that my classroom has truly become a laboratory for collaboration. I saw the students working together. I saw the computers connecting, and I don't exactly understand what was happening, but they were a hive, as they say in our textbook. We talk about that in the text. It was really a hive of activity, and there was excitement, and I think they got to know each other. I think Beverly referred to this. We're not a campus where students live on campus, and I really do everything I can to get students involved in activities like the Athenaeum Symposia and other opportunities Montgomery College offers for students to be on campus and to gather other experiences. So the collaboration part was important, and one of the practical things for me, I had a supervisor that was there when I signed up for this, and I had talked with her about what I would be doing and how it would be going. And then in the fall, when it was time to implement, I got a different supervisor, and we had to kind of change what we were doing, or I had to keep her up to speed so she would know what was going on. And one of the biggest things, I'm a parent, and I've had to learn this with my children, but when you do it with your students, I had to learn to trust my students and the process of what we were doing and know that they are college students. This is academically rigorous work, and guess what? They can do it. I gained a higher level of work from students, and I was able to determine that and measure it through the progress reports that they turned in 3 times throughout the semester. One lesson that I learned that I had done somewhat in the past, but I really forged a stronger relationship with the campus librarian to develop a library course page for my course that included the Smithsonian websites and the resources listed. I really do find that the librarians can be a resource and can help make this stronger for your students and give them access to information that would take them hours to find on their own. They provide links and they give incredible help. So I want to give a shout out to the librarians. And then find new ways of working with other professors on combined activities. Katima Lee and I worked together on a project where we combined, she teaches English, and her English class and my communication studies class examined some aspects of what we were doing in our fellowship and planned activities together. And I'd really like to work with professors in new and dynamic ways like that in the future so that we can find combined activities. I don't know why I haven't done that in the past, but I tend to just be in my little box and in my little classroom and haven't reached out. And then one final thing that I would strive for and would encourage, because it's physically not possible for the students to always get down to the museum, I would recommend that we work with media resources so that we can use GoToMeeting and other digital possibilities so that we can have access to the Smithsonian resources and personnel via video conferencing. The campus has this, and management personnel use it on a regular basis. I explored possibilities and hope to incorporate more of aspects like GoToMeeting into my courses so that we can see the people at the museums, and the Smithsonian people will be available without having to take half or all of a day of work to come to the campus. And yet we physically don't have to be with them in order to gain from their knowledge and wisdom. So I want to thank again the Paul Peck Humanities Institute, and I want to introduce one of my students who is here today and helped me put this presentation together. Hannah Schrantz is one of my students. Come on up. She is currently has an internship with the Smithsonian at the Library of Congress.
With the Paul Peck Humanities.
Paul Peck Humanities Institute, and she has done wonderful work. She helped, as you saw in Group 1, when I showed you the communication through art. She and her group went down there and they worked together, and they came back and shared a lot of valuable information. I had no idea she hopes to major in museum studies. How lucky was I to have her in my class? So try this in your classes, and please know that I think this can really give you an opportunity for innovation in your teaching, and it can help you discover the talents and nurture the students that we have at Montgomery College. Thank you.